By the 1970s, playgrounds meant rocket slides so hot they could fry an egg, spinning giant strides that could launch you skyward, and steel jungle gyms towering high over asphalt. Today, most of those would be illegal. We promised safety. What we lost was the thrill. But how did risky play become public enemy number one? And what did that cost a whole generation of kids? In the crowded cities of late 19th century America, children played wherever they could, in alleyways, on rooftops, and even in the streets. The risks were obvious: traffic, disease, and a lack of fresh air. Reformers saw danger not just in the environment, but in the future these children faced without safe places to grow. Inspired by Friedrich Froebel, a German educator who introduced the sand garden, American advocates began to imagine something new: a dedicated space for play built right into the city. In 1887, Golden Gate Park in San Francisco opened one of the first playgrounds in North America, featuring a simple sand pit. The idea spread quickly. By 1895, New York City passed a law requiring every new school to include a playground. This was not just about recreation, it was a public promise that play mattered for health, learning, and citizenship. The Playground Association of America, founded in 1906, pushed the movement further, publishing guidance and training leaders to supervise play. Within 2 decades, thousands of playgrounds appeared across the country, each one a small act of faith in the potential of children. Early advocates believed that supervised, structured play could shape not just bodies, but character. That philosophy would soon shape the equipment itself and set the stage for the next era of playground design. Playgrounds in the early 20th century did not just invite risk, they were organized that way. City parks hired uniformed attendants, often former athletes or teachers, to oversee the action. Children lined up by age or even gender, waiting their turn as the whistle blew for relay races, tug of war, or a round on the day's most coveted and most dangerous equipment. The giant stride stood at the center of many parks, a tall steel pole crowned with a spinning hub, from which ropes dangled like the arms of a clock. Kids would grab hold, sprint in circles, and let their feet leave the ground, bodies flung outward by sheer momentum. If you lost your grip, you flew, sometimes into a friend, sometimes into the dirt. The thrill was part of the appeal. Metal slides towered overhead, their ladders rising higher than some rooftops. On a hot day, the surface could sear the back of your legs, but the real challenge came at the top. No rails, just a narrow perch and the steep drop. Swings were anchored to frames twice an adult's height, and the goal was always the same: pump your legs until you felt weightless or dare to leap off mid-arc. Jungle gyms and monkey bars loomed over gravel or packed earth, daring climbers to go higher, hang longer, and risk the fall. Supervision was constant, but not always gentle. Attendants enforced rules, settled disputes, and sometimes patched up scrapes. Yet the message was clear: challenge was expected, and a little pain was part of the bargain. These were spaces where the line between courage and recklessness was drawn in real time, one skinned knee at a time. In 1943, on the outskirts of Copenhagen, a landscape architect named Carl Theodor Sorensen watched children ignore his carefully designed playgrounds in favor of nearby construction sites and piles of scrap. That year, under the shadow of war and occupation, Sorensen was asked to create a new kind of play space at Emdrup. Instead of fixed equipment, he filled a fenced lot with piles of wood, bricks, old tires, and even real tools. Children built forts, dug trenches, and invented their own games. Supervisors, called play workers, watched from the sidelines, ready to step in if truly needed, but mostly letting kids take the lead. The Emdrup model was radical, and it trusted children to shape their own environment, to solve problems, and to manage real risks. The process mattered as much as the product. Structures rose, toppled, and were rebuilt, each cycle a lesson in collaboration and consequence. Word of Emdrup spread first to Britain, where Lady Marjorie Allen championed the adventure playground, and then across the Atlantic. In 1950, a pilot in Minneapolis, sponsored by a magazine, tried the loose parts approach, though it lasted only a year. The concept proved more durable in California, where sites like Berkeley and Huntington Beach kept the adventure, playground spirit alive into the present day. Here, children still hammer, saw, and build, guided by adults trained to encourage autonomy rather than control. Loose parts play offered something missing from traditional parks: agency. Kids could test boundaries, take pride in their creations, and experience the satisfaction of fixing what broke. Supervision was present, but hands-off, grounded in the belief that a scraped knee or a wobbly tower could teach more than a perfectly safe, unchanging structure ever could. In a world shaped by scarcity and uncertainty, adventure playgrounds proved that creativity and resilience could grow from a pile of junk and a little trust. A concrete rocket ship rises from the center of a suburban park, its nose pointed skyward, its surface pitted and gray. In the 1950s and 60s, playgrounds across North America filled with these monumental sculptures, animals, castles, submarines, and especially rockets, each promising a journey into fantasy. Park brochures boasted about the durability and modern look of these structures. Cities signed contracts for precast concrete and stone, drawn by the appeal of low maintenance and a sense of permanence. Manufacturers pitched these novelty pieces as cutting edge, a way to bring the space age or fairy tales to the local park at a fraction of the cost of custom builds. But on a summer afternoon, the spectacle often fell flat. Children circled the concrete rocket, tapped it, and moved on. The steps were steep, the interior cramped, the play possibilities limited to climbing inside and peering out a narrow window. Animal sculptures like turtles, lions, and whales looked inviting from a distance. But up close, there was little to do except sit or climb briefly before boredom set in. These static pieces resisted imagination. They could not be moved, changed, or combined. The promise of adventure faded quickly when the only action was posing for a photo or scrambling up and down the same hard surface. Child development experts like Joe Frost noticed a pattern. Kids ignored the expensive installations and invented their own fun nearby, sliding down hills in cardboard boxes or turning a pile of dirt into a fort. The concrete era was a triumph of adult taste, visual drama, municipal pride, and a nod to culture over the messy, unpredictable needs of actual play. The result was a playground that looked spectacular on paper, but left children searching for something more engaging, a mismatch between what manufacturers delivered and what young minds truly wanted. Courtrooms began to reshape playgrounds long before bulldozers arrived. In the late 1970s, a rising tide of lawsuits, many sparked by severe injuries from falls and equipment failures, forced cities and manufacturers to rethink their approach. The financial risk was no longer theoretical. Multi-million-dollar verdicts made it clear that every exposed bolt or high platform could become a liability. In 1981, the Consumer Product Safety Commission published its first handbook for public playground safety. It outlined voluntary but influential guidelines on heights, surfaces, and guardrails. Manufacturers moved quickly to comply, shifting to materials like rotationally molded plastic that could be mass-produced with rounded edges and fewer maintenance headaches. By 1993, ASTM F1487 set technical standards for everything from the width of ladder rungs to the resilience of surfacing. The International Play Equipment Manufacturers Association, founded in 1995, began certifying equipment to these specs, locking in a new era of uniformity. The playground industry, once defined by local carpenters and city welders, now followed a national rulebook, one that prioritized safety, predictability, and the bottom line. Across North America, the wooden castles that once defined playground adventure began to vanish in the early 2000s. City workers came with caution tape and power tools, dismantling towers and bridges that had been built by hand, often with the sweat of parent volunteers and the vision of designers like Horst Henke. The official reason sounded practical: splinters, rot, and the challenge of keeping sightlines clear for adult supervision. But for the kids who grew up leaping from turret to turret, those explanations rang hollow. What replaced these sprawling forts were smaller, safer plastic units with low platforms and bright colors. These structures promised peace of mind, but they left older kids unmoved. With fewer places to climb, hide, and test their limits, tweens and teens found little reason to linger. The playground, once a magnet for imagination and risk, became a backdrop for younger children. For everyone else, the pull of screens and indoor spaces grew stronger with each demolished castle. Today, American kids spend less than half as much time outdoors as their parents did in the 1980s. As screens claim more childhood hours, the need for real, adventurous play grows urgent. Sometimes, a scraped knee is the price of resilience. Wonder survives where challenge is allowed to thrive.